Hello and welcome to this exploring session, the continuing adventures in the true tragedy of Richard the Third, a Queen's Men play from, the script we have is about 1594, so it's originated sometime before that. Let's not worry too much about the date. The story so far, some stuff's happened. Go back and watch the previous video. Richard's slowly working his way up the rungs of power. Various other people are sauntering down, sort of like a game of snakes and ladders. Some people are slowly progressing up. Some people are going very, very quickly to the bottom. There's an awful lot of jostling for position between various people across various different statuses, and status play is very much the abiding memory of the previous session, as where we left it around about scene 8, depending on how you number the scenes. We found at least one scene, which should really be 2. So depending on the version you're looking at, you might find that we are occasionally creeping out of sync, but that is part of the course. To guide us through the next few scenes in this session as we get past the halfway mark in the play, we have this fabulous collection of peoples who are going to read parts for you, and in no particular order. So let's start with the title character. Reading Richard today is...
Hi, I'm Tamara. I am an actor. I am usually in London, currently in Germany.
Joining us as messenger, citizen, and Buckingham today is...
Hello, I'm Dan. I'm an actor in Montpellier, France.
Joining us as Hastings, Morton, and Banister is...
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Russell, and I'm also based in Romford.
Reading Shaw's wife and Will is...
Hi, I'm Aliki, Chapple. I'm based in Lancashire, but and I'm an actor, writer, translator, too many things.
And reading the Cardinal and Brackenbury is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk. Never tried acting for a living.
Reading Queen, Lodowick, and Stanley is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good. I'm a historian and I'm in Yorkshire.
Performing the Page and Prince Edward today is...
Hello, I'm Sarah Blake. I'm an actor, writer and director in Germany.
Reading Catesby, Forest, and Herald today will be...
Hi, I'm Ruth Evans. I'm a specialist in medieval literature and I'm based in St. Louis in the Midwest of the US.
Performing Elizabeth and Denton is...
Hi, I'm Valentina and I'm an Italian actor and voiceover artist in London.
And reading York, Tyrrel, and George is...
Hi, I'm Francis Cox. I'm an actor living in Amsterdam.
And finally, joining us once again today, our special guest is...
Hi, I'm Yitka Stilova. I'm a Title A Fellow in English Literature at Trinity College, Cambridge, and I specialise in Richard III.
And I am your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be, attempting to navigate things. Unless I've skipped anybody, do wave if I've missed anybody out. I don't think I have. Oh, it's wonderful when things work. Okay, let's go straight into scene 9 of the play as we have it. Enter the Mother Queen and her young son, the Duke of York, and Elizabeth.
May it please your grace to show your children the cause of your heaviness, that we, knowing it, may be co-partners of your sorrows.
Ay me, poor husbandless queen, and you, poor fatherless princes.
Good mother, expect the living and forget the dead. What? Though our father be dead, yet behold his children the image of himself.
Oh, poor princes, my mourning is for you and your brother, who is gone up to an untimely coronation.
Why, mother, he is a prince, and in hands of our 2 uncles, Earl Rivers and Lord Grey, who will no doubt be careful of his estate.
I know they will, but kings have mortal enemies as well as friends that esteem and regard them. Ah, sweet children, when I am at rest, my nightly dreams are dreadful. Methinks as I lie in my bed, I see the league broken, which was sworn at the death of your kingly father. 'Tis this, my children, and many other causes of like importance, that makes your aged mother to lament as she doth.
May it please your grace?
Oh, my son, no more grace, for I am so sore disgraced that without God's grace I fall into despair with myself. But who is this?
Enter a messenger.
What art thou that with thy ghastly looks pressest us into sanctuary to affright our mother queen?
Ah, sweet princes, doth my countenance bewray me? My news is doubtful and heavy.
Then utter it to us, that our mother may not hear it.
Oh yes, my friend, speak, whate'er it be.
Then thus may it please your grace. The young prince coming up to his coronation, attended on by his two uncles, Earl Rivers and Lord Grey, and the rest of your kindred, was by the Duke of Buckingham and the Protector met at Stony Stratford, when on a sudden grew malice between the Duke of Buckingham and the Lord Grey. But in the end, the Duke of Buckingham's malice grew so great that he arrested and attached all those of your kindred of high treason, whereupon the Protector, being too rash in judgment, hath committed them all to Pomfret Castle.
Where I fear he will butcher them all. But where is the prince, my son?
He remains at London in the bishop's palace in the hands of the Protector.
Oh, traitors! Will they lay hands on their prince and imprison his peers, which no doubt means well towards him? But tell me, art thou not servant to the Archbishop of York?
Yes, and it pleased your grace, for himself is here at hands with letters from the council, and here he comes.
And indeed, enter the Cardinal.
But here, my friend, grief has already almost made me forget thy reward. Ah, come, my lord, thou bringest the heavy news. Come, shoot thine arrow, hit this heart that is almost dead with grief already.
Whate'er my news be, have patience. The Duke of Gloucester greets your grace.
Draw home, my lord, for now you hit the mark.
The prince, your son, doth greet your grace.
Ah, happy gale that blew that arrow by. Oh, let me see the letter he hath sent. Perhaps it may prolong my life a while.
How doth my brother? Is he in health, my lord?
In health, sweet prince, but longs to have thy company.
I am content, if my mother will let me go.
Content or not, sweet prince, it must be so.
Hold! And have they persuaded me, thy son, to have thy brother too away from me? Nay, first I will know what shall become of thee before I send my other son to them.
Look on this letter and advise yourself, for thus the council has determined.
And have they chosen thee among the rest for to persuade me to this enterprise? No, my lord, and thus persuade yourself, I will not send him to be butchered.
Your grace misdoubt the worst. They send for him only to have him bedfellow to the king, and there to stay and keep him company. And if your son miscarry, then let his blood be laid under my charge. I know their drifts and what they do pretend. They shall both this night sleep in the tower, and tomorrow they shall come forth to his happy coronation. On my honour, this is the full effect. For see, the ambushed nobles are at hand to take the prince away from you by force, if you will not by fair means let him go.
Why, my lord, will you break sanctuary and bring in rebels to affright us thus? No! You shall rather take away my life before you get my boy from me.
Why, madam, have you taken sanctuary?
Aye, my lord, and high time too, I trow.
A heavy case, when princes fly for aid, where cutthroats, rebels, and bankrupts should be. Madam, what answer do you return? If I could persuade you, 'twere best to let him go.
But for I see you counsel for the best, I am content you shall have my son, in hope that you will send him safe to me. Here, I deliver him into your hands. Farewell, my boy, Commend me to thy brother.
Mother, farewell, and farewell, sister, too. I will but see my brother and return to you.
Tears stops my speech. Come, let us in, my lord.
And exit.
I will attend upon your grace. I'll take the prince, the queen and I have done. I'll take my leave, and after you I'll come.
Exit Cardinal.
How now, my friend? Shall I go to my brother?
What else, sweet prince? And for that cause we are come, to bear you company.
And everybody exits. End of scene. As ever, there's always that slight flanging quality to where the script says exits live. But yeah, somewhere in that general area. Yeah, yes, the Cardinal does present interesting arguments. Something very interesting going on there. I particularly like the irony once again played at the top of the scene. In the hands of our two uncles, Rivers and Grey, because they're fine. Literally, this is the scene immediately after Grey gets his. Well, we don't know death at this stage yet. But yeah,
he hasn't actually been executed, has he? They just took him away.
They've just imprisoned him at this stage.
Yeah.
But he could be dead for all we know.
Yeah.
I doubt he's getting
slow.
Sorry, say again?
The scene was a little slow. The previous ones have been quite fast paced, but this one's a bit slowing it down a little. So we can hear what the Queen Mother has to say, or Mother Queen.
Well, it's interesting because the Cardinal's sort of presenting this interesting, case you've got to pass him out because on my honour, they'll just go to the Tower overnight and then there'll be a coronation. Unless you don't send him, in which case some bad things might happen. It's a really weird argument, and I find that very interesting. It's like you've got to play their game, otherwise they're going to start doing something bad. So he's not an idiot per se. It's not like he's completely ignorant of what's going on, unless I'm misreading that.
I couldn't work out why she agreed.
Yeah, it did seem very quick, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I found that odd too.
Well, he does say, I've got men here come to take him by force. So agree or he'll come anyway.
Yeah. But there is that thing they bring in the sanctuary element, and it's like it feels like there is some sort of response there or some back and forth that maybe isn't there. I don't know. It might work as a scene, or maybe it's just if I could persuade you is persuasion enough. It doesn't feel heavy enough though, does it?
What I loved was the way the children were trying to protect their mother.
I did too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elizabeth gets another moment there. I mean, she only kind of has the one line, but she's really coming off the page, isn't she? Elizabeth, the daughter.
Yes. I mean, that's a really good line.
I like.
And they keep. Sorry, go, Francis.
I like the fact that York. There's this whole irony in the fact that York is, quite happy and quite eager to go and join his brother, but of course he's going to his death.
Yeah.
And we've got. And we've got to assume that everybody knows the plot. All of these. Everybody knows where, even if it's only an outline, they may not know the details.
Everyone knows the princes in the tower.
Yeah. And what was the other point I was going to make? Somebody else? Any thoughts while I try and figure out what I was going to say?
Yeah, I mean the thought I had was that there must be a significant number of people with the Cardinal. The emissaries of the council. Otherwise, who is he talking to in his final line before he exits? There's Catesby plus others, I suspect.
Oh yes, and he intimates that there are peoples. Yeah, Ruth.
I just wondered where this was being, what the scene is, because sanctuary would be a church at this time, wouldn't it?
Not necessarily, no.
Oh, is that right, Helen?
It could include the precincts, which in some cases were quite wide and included a lot of houses.
Okay.
I mean, in Beverley, the sanctuary included the entire town.
Right.
And I mean, people taking sanctuary in Beverley actually held down jobs.
It's interesting because again, the Queen keeps mentioning that the league that is sworn at the death of your kingly father. It's the first scene of the play, and it keeps getting a name check. So it's a really important reminder for us that we in production that you have to make that opening scene really land. It's a very important series of exchanges because it will keep getting this name check throughout. Any other thoughts before we move forward? No. Okay, let's go into the next scene. Enter. It says enter 4 watchmen. I don't think they say anything. So enter 4 watchmen. Enter Richard's page.
Why, thus by keeping company, am I become like unto those with whom I keep company? As my lord hopes to wear the crown, so I hope that by that means to have preferment. But instead of the crown, the blood of the headless light upon his head. He hath made but a wrong match, for blood is a threatener and will have revenge. He makes havoc of all to bring his purpose to pass. All those of the Queen's kindred that were committed to Pomfret Castle, he hath caused them to be secretly put to death, without judgment. The like was never seen in England. He spares none. Whom he but mistrusteth to be a hinderer to his proceedings, he is straight chopped up in prison. The valiant Earl of Oxford, being but mistrusted, is kept close prisoner at Arm Castle. Again, how well Dr. Shaw hath pleased my lord that preached at Paul's Cross yesterday, that proved the 2 princes to be bastards. Whereupon in the afternoon came down my Lord Mayor and the aldermen to Baynard's Castle, and offered my lord the whole estate upon him, and offered to make him king, which he refused so faintly that, if it had been offered once more, I know he would have taken it. The Duke of Buckingham is gone about, and is now in the Guildhall making his oration. But here comes my lord.
And enter Richard and Catesby.
Catesby, content thee. I have warned the Lord Hastings to this court, and since he is so hard to be won, 'tis better to cut him off than suffer him. He hath been all this while partaker to our secrets, and if he should but by some mislike utter it, then were we all cast away.
Nay, my lord, do as you will. Yet I have spoken what I can in my friend's cause.
Go to no more, do, Catesby. They say I have been a long sleeper today, but I'll be awake anon to some of their costs. But, sirrah, are those men in readiness that I appointed you to get?
Ay, my lord, give diligent attendance upon your grace.
Go to, look to it then, Catesby. Get thee thy weapons ready, for I will enter the court.
I will, my lord.
And exit Richard and Catesby.
Doth my lord say he hath been a long sleeper today? There are those of the court that are of another opinion, that thinks his grace lieth never long enough abed. Now there is court held today by divers of the council, which I fear me will cost the Lord Hastings and the Lord Stanley their best caps. My lord hath willed me to get 6 ruffians in readiness, and when he knocks with his fist upon the board, they to rush in, and to cry, treason, treason, and to lay hands upon the Lord Hastings and the Lord Stanley, which for fear I should let slip, I will give my diligent attendance.
And enter Richard, Catesby and others, pulling Lord Hastings.
Come, bring him away, let this suffice. Thou and that accursed sorceress, the Mother Queen, hath bewitched me, with assistance of that famous strumpet of my brother's, Shaw's wife. My withered arm is a sufficient testimony. Deny it if thou canst. Lay not Shaw's wife with thee last night?
She was in my house, my lord, I cannot deny, but not for any such matter. If,
villain, feedst thou me with ifs and ands? Go fetch me a priest, make a short shrift, and dispatch him quickly. For by the blessed St. Paul, I swear I will not die until I see the traitor's head. Away, Sir Thomas, suffer him not to speak, see him executed straight, and let his co-partner, the Lord Stanley, be carried to prison also. 'Tis not his broke head I have given him shall excuse him.
And exit Hastings and his captors.
Catesby, go you and see it presently proclaimed throughout the city of London by a herald of arms that the cause of his death and the rest were for conspiring by witchcraft the death of me and the Duke of Buckingham, that so they might govern the king and rule the realm. I think the proclamation be almost done.
Aye, my good lord, and finished too.
Well then, about it. But here is thou, Catesby. Meanwhile, I will listen after success of the Duke of Buckingham, who is labouring all this while with the citizens of London to make me king, which I hope shall be shortly. For thou seest our foes now are fewer, and we nearer the mark than before. And when I have it, look thou for the place of thy friend the Lord. The Lord?
Meanwhile, about thy business.
I thank your grace.
Hang on.
Yeah, that must be an error on my part. So it should be, look thou for the place of thy friend the Lord Hastings. Meanwhile, about thy business is all Richard's line. I apologise for that cock up. That is on me. Richard, could you just do the end of your line, the for thou seest, do that little chunk as dialogue, please.
And when I have it, look thou for the place of thy friend the Lord Hastings. Meanwhile, about thy business.
I thank your grace.
And exit case B.
Now, sirrah, to thee. There is one thing more undone, which grieves me more than all the rest, and to say the truth, it is of more importance than all the rest.
Well, that my lord would utter it to his page. Then should I count myself a happy man if I could ease my lord of that great doubt.
I commend thy willingness, but it is too mighty, and reacheth the stars.
The more weighty it is, the sooner shall I, by doing it, increase your honour's good liking toward me.
Be assured of that. But the matter is of weight and great importance, and doth concern the state.
Why, my lord, I will choke them with the gifts that shall perform it. Therefore, good my lord, trust me in this cause.
Indeed, thy trust I know to be so true that I care not to utter it unto thee. Come hither, and yet the matter is too weighty for so mean a man.
Yet, good my lord, utter it.
Why, thus it is. I would have my two nephews, the young prince and his brother, secretly murdered. Zounds, villain, 'tis out. Wilt thou do it? Or wilt thou betray me?
My lord, you shall see my forwardness herein. I am acquainted with one James Tyrrel, that lodgeth hard by your honour's chamber. With him, my lord, I will so work that soon at night you shall speak with him.
Of what reputation or calling is that Tyrrel? May we trust him with that which, once known, were the utter confusion of me and my friends forever?
For his trust, my lord, I dare be bound. Only this, a poor gentleman he is, hoping for preferment by your grace. And upon my credit, my lord, he will see it done.
Well, in this be very circumspect, and sure with thy diligence. Be liberal, and look for a day to make thee bless thyself, wherein thou servest so good a lord. And now that Shaw's wife's goods be confiscate, go from me to the Bishop of London, and see that she receive her open penance. Let her be turned out of prison, but so bare as a wretch that worthily hath deserved that plague, and let there be straight proclamation made by my lord the mayor that none shall relieve her nor pity her, and privy spies set in every corner of the city, that they may take notice of them that relieves her. For as her beginning was most famous above all, so will I have her end most infamous above all. Have care now, my boy, and win thy master's heart forever.
Exit Richard and Page Shame. 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 This is a fascinating scene. You sort of look at it on paper and you go, right, there's a big speech, there's some stuff, there's people talking about stuff happening, which maybe you could stage. But there's something really interesting because it's all about noises off. Something's happening over there while we're planning the next thing. And if I was doing it today, I assume they wouldn't have done it then, but you would probably have the silhouette of Buckingham doing his speech over there while they're doing this, and then they're going, and then Hastings dragged on, and you know they're setting up things to them be enacted in a moment, and that seems to be an action that keeps coming, and I think there's something really wonderful about the thing with the page. The page is still so good. Because the pages go, would you like to say out loud the horrible crime you would like me to commit? Could I have it in writing, please, in triplicate? That would also be quite good.
I was not expecting him to do that. I was reading the line, and when it came to the whole, oh yeah, I want my nephews murdered, I was like,
Yeah.
And I love the binary choice, the false choice that Richard gives him. Wilt thou do it, or wilt thou betray me?
Yeah.
That is fascinating. I mean, that's so nicely done. Yeah, there's a lot in here. I mean, yes, and the connection, the page talking to the audience, the page being drawn into this world, and we're getting the deaths are happening. These people who left stage, they're sort of arrested. They're dead. And deaths are starting to pile up. Yeah, I'm really interested in that. Thoughts in the room about that scene? You can disagree with me, by the way.
It's a bit of a better pace than the previous one, but it's still a bit slow. I kind of want to get on with it, just talking about it, but really I want to actually put his money where his mouth is.
Tamara.
I'd almost want to disagree, because the page comes on and tells us everything that's been going on, and that's quite a lot. So you have like the whole thing with, Hastings is doing his spiel over there, and then we've had the kids declared bastards already, and so it's a huge time jump. Loads has happened off stage.
There's I mean, I think Elizabeth's point was that, we're not seeing a lot of the action.
Right.
It's something that's always happening just over there for a lot of it, not all of it, but, it seems to be alternating that. Helen,
Do you have... No, sorry, go on.
Helen,
I was going to say more or less what Tamara said, that I think, in fact, also the element in that scene of the delay in Richard actually coming out with it builds the tension.
Yeah.
I must say, I never thought it would be the page.
No.
well, it says the page is very sensible, saying, yeah, I know this bloke. It's outsourcing. It's great. Page is not going near this with a barge pole. This page is not stupid. Aliki.
So I know that it can be deceiving to rely too much on modern parallels, but this seemed so modern to me. It's like, well, the internet rumors say the boys are bastards, and I know a guy who knows a guy who can get this happen, and she's been cancelled.
I think, and especially, Dr. Shaw is a sort of online internet shock jock, isn't he?
Absolutely. I would so do it that way. Breitbart.
Yeah, Francis.
I was wondering, this whole business about Dr. Shaw proving that the two princes are bastards, this is based on historical fact, I take it.
Yeah, yes, he does indeed preach a sermon, and certainly according to the version I've been working from, gets quite into it.
But it did actually happen. That's my question.
Yeah, I think pretty much, most of the events here on some level occurred. It was a thing, and it is that thing. So there's an oration going on with Dr. Shaw, or has been. There's an oration happening with Buckingham. There's all these outgoing persuade the people that the the next actions are going to be fine and reasonable. Because it was this thing about when the page says secretly be put to death without judgment, the like was never seen in England. You know, this is not business as usual.
But everybody's pretending it is, and that too, to me, has a great deal of modern resonance.
Yeah.
There's a commentator called Jan Kott who wrote about this play as for contemporary, not this play, but other plays of this type for contemporaries, and he puts the circumstances as very much part of what he had experienced on the wrong side of the wall in the Cold War.
It is this way that everybody's being turned against, not necessarily each other, but they're all playing to their own advantages and trying to find their way of navigating this.
Well, and also either you help me in my agenda to capture the state, or you are a traitor.
Yeah.
We've not heard that recently from
No,
anyone.
no, not at all.
I've not heard that on any platform by any major head of state anywhere.
Yeah.
The earplugs are working, are they, Robert?
Other thoughts. I mean, it's a very compact. I mean, it covers an awful lot of ground, and yes, some of it's a bit speechifying. But I think also actually there's tonal shifts and pacing, and also faster and slower. There's light and shadow. I mean, there's a lot to play with here. This is a play I just feel constantly wanting to workshop because the options here as a production are actually really, really wide. Actually, I can see different ways of doing this.
I was going to say that I really like it when Richard goes out and the page turns to the audience and says, you know, has my lord said that he's been a long sleeper today? There are some who say that actually he doesn't stay in bed long enough. And that's a really nice way of taking the audience into his confidence, and also saying, Richard's just up to too many things. And it's funny, it's good.
And again, it's still an ensemble. You know, it's about all of these players. It's not just about Richard, which is, you know, just because he's the title character. Yitka.
We have seen yesterday how important the language of law is. Everyone tries to justify their means, or at least make it look like it's illegal. I'm struck by the line by Richard when he tries to prove that there has been some witchcraft going on. Big conspiracy against him. My withered arm is a sufficient testimony. So again, the language of law, but also the fact that, interestingly, this is the only reference to Richard's disability beyond what we have right at the beginning of the play, where, you know, he is described as crooked-backed, lame-armed by truth. So when you see the context of, you know, Thomas More creating this narrative of disability, it's interesting to see a text which doesn't really play with it that much at all, unlike some others from the period.
Yes. Can I hear the wings of an imaginary duck flapping in the distance there? Just a flyby quacking there. Any additional thoughts before we move forward? No, lovely. Okay, let's. We've just had Richard set up, shall we say, and I've already done the Game of Thrones thing. So let's see how that follows on, because the next scene, enter a lone Shaw's wife.
Unfortunate Shore's wife, dishonor to the king, shame to thy country, and the only blot of defame to all thy kindred. Why was I made fair that a king should favor me? But my friend should have preferred discipline before affection, for they know of my folly. Yea, my own husband knew of my breach of disloyalty, and yet suffered me. By reason he knew it bootless to kick against the prick. Sweet King Edward, little didst thou think Shore's wife should have been so hardly used. Thy unnatural brother, not content with my goods, which I yet confiscate in his custody, but yet more to add to my present misery, hath proclaimed, upon great penalty, that none whatsoever shall either aid or succor me, but here being comfortless, to die in the streets with hunger. I am constrained to beg, But I fear 'tis in vain, for none will pity me. Yet here comes one to whom I have done good in restoring his lands that were lost. Now will I try him to see if he will give me anything.
And enter Lodowick.
Ah, time! How thou sufferest fortune to alter estates, and changest the minds of the good for the worst. How many headless peers sleep in their graves, whose places are furnished with their inferiors, such as are neither nobly born, nor virtuously minded. My heart hardly bewails the loss of the young king by the outrage of the protector, who hath proclaimed himself king by the name of Richard III. The commons murmur at it greatly, that the young king and his brother should be imprisoned. But to what end, 'tis hard to say, for many think that they shall never come forth again. But God do all for the best, and that the right heirs may not be utterly overthrown.
Gods, what grief it is for me to ask where I have been given.
Ah, my good Lord Hastings, how innocently thou didst the heavens bear witness.
Good sir, take pity upon me and relieve me.
Indeed, 'tis pity to see so fair a face to ask for alms. But tell me, hast thou no friends?
Yes, sir, I had many friends, but when my chiefest friend of all died, the rest of them forsook me.
Belike then thy fact was notorious, that thy friends leaving thee would let thee go as a spoil for villains. But hear'st thou, I prithee, tell me the truth, and as I am a gentleman, I will pity thee.
Ah, Lodowick, tell thee the truth. Why have this entreaty served thee when thy lands had been clean gone had it not been for Shore's wife? Dost thou make me so long to beg for so little?
Indeed, my lands I had restored me by Mistress Shore. But may this be she?
Ay, Lodowick, I am she that begged thy lands of King Edward IV. Therefore I pray thee bestow something on me.
Oh, gods, what is this world, and how uncertain are riches? Is this she that was in such credit with the king? Nay, more, that could command a king indeed. I cannot deny, but my land she restored me. But shall I, by relieving of her, hurt myself? No, for straight proclamation is made that none shall succour her. Therefore, for fear I should be seen to talk with her, I will shun her company and get me to my chamber, and there set down in heroical verse the shameful end of a king's concubine, which is no doubt as wonderful as the defoliation of a kingdom.
And exit Lodowick at some speed.
Lodowick, if thou wilt give me nothing, yet stay and talk with me. I know he shuns my company. All my friends now forsake me. In prosperity I had many, but in adversity none. Oh, gods, have I this for my good I have done? For when I was in my chiefest pomp, I thought that day well spent, wherein I might pleasure my friend by suits to the king. For if I had spoken, he would not have said nay, for though he was king, yet Shore's wife swayed the sword. Ah, where need was, there was I bountiful, and mindful I was still upon the poor to relieve them, and now none will know me, nor succor me. Therefore here shall I die for want of sustenance. And here comes another, whom I have done good unto in saving the life of his son. Well, I will try him, see if he will give me anything.
And before we go on to the rest of this scene, I think I want to just pause and go over what we've already done, because you know, there's so much already. It's another one of these Brechtian scenes, isn't it? It's Lodowick is the is pure oh dearism, isn't it? Oh, the world's terrible. Oh, the king. Oh, lots of everyone's saying it's bad. I don't know. It's probably be fine. I hope the children don't die, but what am I going to do? And then he meets Shaw's wife, and not only does he decide to shun her with these semi-asides, some of which are asides and some of which are half not asides, and then he goes, not only does he decide to shun her, he goes, I'll rewrite my own narrative on Instagram later to make it look like I was great.
No, that's not what he's saying.
It totally is. I'm with Rob.
What he says at the end.
He's saying he will make this heroical verse about the shameful end, not about his part in it.
That's true.
Okay, but
so he's basically going to use her to get followers on Instagram by writing up her salacious stories.
Yeah, that's it. The downfall of a slut. That's what he's writing.
Typical bloody poet.
Yeah. I love that. I love that last line of his before he exits. You know, I'm going to go to my chamber and write a poem about all of this.
Yes, in heroical verse.
Yeah, heroical verse.
Is this a reference to an actual poem on Shaw's wife?
I wonder whether this might be nodding to the collection Mirror for Magistrates, which has had these ghosts coming up saying, you know, how wrong they have been, and people don't follow my example and then just disappear back. And this was hugely popular in the sort of 70s and later iterations. I don't know whether this is a direct reference, but it might have been, because there is Shaw's wife saying, you know, look at me, I have done things that I should not have done.
Right.
I mean, it's absolutely it's fab. Other thoughts. Who wants to jump in? Go on, Tamara. You know you want to.
I put it in the chat because I didn't want to.
Quite right too.
Okay, then don't. I've just got lots of wows. I mean, it's a really nicely structured scene. It's got lots of play. It's engaging with the audience. It's asking lots of questions, and it's not over. We're only halfway through. So, any additional thoughts before we finish the scene?
Yeah, there's a difference between thinking virtuously and acting virtuously.
Virtue signalling.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, this just keeps feeling more and more relevant every scene we go. And again, this isn't at all a central narrative, part of the plot. This is what we could call the B plot to this, which is thematically utterly woven into the rest of the narrative. But it isn't, none of this actually is. It's not about Richard's rise. It's part of the consequences of the fall of the king and the changing of the guard. And this is one of the losers in that chain of consequences, which I love. Okay, so Shaw's wife has just seen the entrance of a citizen and another, so some supernumerary, and is done him some good in saving the life of his son. So we've gone from helping in monetary terms to actually literally saving somebody's life. Let's see where this scene goes. Enter citizen and another.
No men, no laws, no princes, no orders, all's hushed, neighbour, now he's king. But before he was king, how was the Thames thwacked with ruffians? What frays had we in the streets? Now, he hath proclaimed peace between Scotland and England for 6 years. To what end I know not. Usurpers had need to be wise.
Good sir, relieve me and bestow something upon me.
Ah, neighbour, hedges have eyes and highways have ears, but who is a beggar woman? The streets are full of them, i' faith, but here's thou. Hast thou no friends that thou goest a begging so?
Yes, sir, I had friends, but they are all dead as you are.
Why, am I dead, neighbour? Hi, thou arrant queen, what meanest thou by that?
I mean, they are dead in charity. But I pray, sir, had not you the life of your son saved in the time of King Edward IV by one Shore's wife?
Yes, marry had I. But art thou a sprig of the same bough? I promise you, neighbour, I thought so, that so idle a housewife could not be without the acquaintance of so noble a strumpet. Well, for her sake, I'll give thee somewhat.
Nay, then, know that I am she that saved the life of thy condemned son.
Who art thou? Shore's wife? Lie still, purse. Neighbour, I would not for £20 have given her 1 farthing. The proclamation is so hard by King Richard. Why, minion, are you she that was the dishonour to the king, the shame to her husband, the discredit to the city? Here you, lay your fingers to work and get thereby somewhat to maintain you. Neighbour, I grew very choleric, and thou didst save the life of my son. Why, if thou hadst not, another would, and for my part, I would have he had been hanged 7 years ago. It had saved me a great deal of money then. But come, let us go in, and leave the queen alone.
And exit citizen.
Alas, thus am I become an open shame to the world. Here shall I die in the streets for want of sustenance. Alas, is my face so heinous that none will pity me? Yet here comes another to whom I have done good, who is at least able to pleasure me. Yet I will try him to see if he will give me anything.
So, cashier number 2, please. There's some different variation on a theme. I mean, it's getting very everyman in here, isn't it? I love this citizen. Yeah, well, now we've got the new king. At least the trains run on time. It's very like that. And then the logic. He would give money to a friend of them, but wouldn't give to them themselves. I mean, that's just wow. I think very well done, by the way, Dan. I think absolutely pitch right.
Thank you. Office Shelby was my inspiration there.
And can I just say this? The misogyny of it! When her having sex with the king brought him advantage, great. Now she's every rude name for a promiscuous woman in the book. Great.
Yeah. And it's an interesting question to ask about where the play, or at least originally the play, was positioning this scene in terms of the audience's sympathies, and where we of course would place it today. Because I should, just in case anyone forget that on the bit on the title page about how she is there is a warning, I think, saying along those lines. Yes, an example for all wicked women is how the title page puts her. So there's a question about how we do this scene today and how we balance those forces. Thoughts?
I think it's important to note that he is a citizen. That means he was free of the City of London, which makes him an important person. He's got all sorts of economic rights in the city. Shore's wife was Shore was a goldsmith, I believe. He was also presumably a citizen too. So there is an element that they are brothers, the citizen and Shore. Now, I mean, it's according to Lodowick, or somebody, I forget who now, Shore connived at, or at any rate accepted that his wife was sleeping with the king. But nevertheless, sorry?
That's what she says too in her speech.
Yeah, but nevertheless, it was seen I imagine it was seen as a disgrace to all the male citizens that one of their wives was behaving like this.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing
or
that in.
possibly one of their wives was known to be doing this.
Well, sure.
Well, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we still haven't finished yet. There's still another, at least one more additional personage. In fact, two more to come. But we'll go to the end of the scene. So, Shaw's wife has seen Morton entering. Morton, a serving man. So enter Morton.
Ah, sir, who but King Richard bears sway, and hath proclaimed John, Earl of Lincoln, heir apparent to the crown. The young princes, they are in the Tower, nay, some says more, they are murdered. But this makes me to muse. The Duke of Buckingham and the King is at such variance, they did all in all to help him to the crown. But the Duke of Buckingham is rigged down to Breckenbury, castle in Wales, and there he means to raise up a power to pull down the usurper. But let them agree as they will, for the next fair wind are overseas.
George's wife so near driven to beg of a serving man. I, necessity have no law, I must needs. Good sir, relieve me and give me something.
Why, what art thou?
In brief, Morton, I am Shore's wife that hath done good to all.
A fool, and ever thy own enemy. In truth, Mistress Shore, my store is but small, yet as it is, will part stakes, but soft I cannot do what I would. I am watched.
For indeed, the page has at some point entered.
Good Morton, relieve me.
What? Should I relieve my king's enemy?
Why, thou promised thou wouldst.
I tell thee I will not, and so be answered. Sons, I would with all my heart, but for yonder villain, a plague on him.
And exit Morton, leaving the page and Shaw's wife alone on stage.
An honest fellow, I warrant him. Now, Shaw's wife, will none relieve thee?
No, none will relieve her that hath been good to all.
Why, 'twere pity to do thee good, but methinks she is fulsome and stinks.
If I be fulsome, shun my company, for none but thy lord sought my misery, and he hath undone me.
Why hath he undone thee? Nay, thy wicked and naughty life hath undone thee. But if thou wantest maintenance, why dost thou not fall to thy old trade again?
Nay, villain, I have done open penance, and am sorry for my sins that are past.
Oh, zounds! Is Shaw's wife become an holy whore? Nay, then, we shall never have done.
Why, hang thee! If thy faults were so written in thy forehead as mine is, it would be as wrong with thee. I prithee, leave me and get thee from me.
And cannot you keep the city, but you must run gadding to the court? And you stay here a little longer, I'll make you be set away. And for my part, would all halls were so served, then there would be fewer in England than there be. And so, farewell, good Mistress Shaw.
And exit the page.
And all such usurping kings as thy lord is may come to a shameful end, which no doubt I may live yet to see. Therefore, sweet God, forgive all my foul offence, and though I have done wickedly in this world, into hellfire let not my soul be hurled.
And exits Shaw's wife on that rather disappointing end line. It's because you can look at this and just as a depiction of misogyny without being inherently misogynistic until you sort of get to that point where she repents, so she deserved it, and you sort of go, no, really not doing that. Really no. Because there's so much here again still coming in where you've got Morton would give money, but the surveillance culture has taken over. You know, the surveillance state. The page is there, perhaps in the livery of Richard. So he can't do anything.
there's so much here. First of all, in the successive delivery of bits of plot by different people. In the meantime, this has happened. And in the meantime, this has happened. So the time seems to be passing. And then her rejection in slightly different ways by everybody. And that, I just, wow, what a scene. Like you, I was very disappointed by that end.
Mm. Oh, cut. Oh, that's cut. It's as simple as that. It's not doing that. Gone. Alan.
But that wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be fair to what the original text was doing. I mean, yes, I agree, but also.
Alan.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. One, I assume that Morton is speaking to the audience because there's nobody else on stage apart from Shaw's wife and him talking to when he does his intro.
There's something really interesting about the way the asides and who people are talking to works in this scene, because sometimes they are talking explicitly to the audience. There might be other people in the street, so it might be that this scene is populated already with people who aren't really properly mentioned. But then sometimes they're doing an aside, and it's not an aside; it's being heard by everyone, and so there's a real play to decide how this scene works. But yeah, you're right; it feels more like there's some. I don't know if that's to an audience or...
At least when you got the citizen, you got and another.
Yeah.
For him to be having a dialogue with.
Unless it's Morton with with a serving man, you know, that kind of logic.
That's a point. And I just wondered with the, there's a reference there, can't see it. It's in her exchange with the page about being marked on the forehead. And I'm just wondering, have we got the precursor effectively so written on the forehead? Are we into Scarlet Letter territory?
I think we're more into branding.
Yeah, which was the precursor of the Scarlet Letter, as in the Hawthorne novel, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Hawthorne was more interested in creating a piece of literature than recording history.
Yeah, no, I'm not suggesting he's a historian, but it's the similar line. And I mean, some of the morality in this would fit extremely well with Bale, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't think you'd have a problem with it.
She's really gone for Shaw's wife, hasn't he? It's really gone for her. It's like a personal vendetta he has against her. That none should succour her, none should help her, that she should walk around asking for help for the people that she's helped and receive nothing from them. It's really gone after her.
It's really dark. I found that scene really disturbing.
Yeah,
I did. Brilliant, really brilliant, but just so dark and so disturbing. And you know, the way you could do it on stage, you know, in a contemporary production, I think it could be very, very powerful.
And there's a certain logic to it in terms of, you know, it's not like Richard necessarily has a personal vendetta, but, you know, in terms of having something for the crowds to be interested in, distraction. There's again the kind of distraction politics where you move away from there's usurpation happening. Let's go and shame someone over there.
I don't think the misogyny is incidental in modern distraction politics either.
No. Yeah. I think, again, the modern parallels are very strong.
Social class is very interesting in this scene because you have three men, all of different social classes.
And going down.
And then a serving who in turn rejects her. And it's like the whole kind of fortune thing has to be kind of played out symbolically. But it's a very misogynist scene. Very.
Okay.
It's really fortunate. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go.
It's really fortunate in both meanings of that. I think I wonder whether there is that emphasis on her fall precisely to underline that wheel of fortune. And if we do think of the Mirror of the Magistrates as one of the things that people would have been familiar with because it was popular, then in the edition from the 60s, actually, Richard has a poem and Shaw's wife has a poem in the very same edition. So they meet not in that poem, but they have these speeches. And I think it really seems to be like one goes up, the other goes down. Sort of connected vessels almost.
Okay, well, on that note, we're going to move away from Shaw's wife. We're going to move into a slightly different direction. So, eyes down for some more cheerfulness. Enter Master Tyrrel and Sir Robert Brackenbury.
Master Tyrrel, the king hath written that for one night I should deliver you the keys, put you in full possession. Good Master Tyrrel, may I be so bold as to demand a question without offence?
Else God forbid. Say on, whate'er it be.
Then this, Master Tyrrel, for your coming, I partly know the cause, for the king oftentimes has sent to me to have them both dispatched. But because I was servant to their father, being Edward IV, my heart would never give me to do the deed.
Why, Sir Robert, you are beside the matter. What need you use such speeches? What matters are between the king and me? I pray you leave it and deliver me the keys.
Ah, here with tears I deliver you the keys. So farewell, Master Tyrrel.
And exit Brackenbury. Enter Forest.
Alas, good Sir Robert, he is kind-hearted, but it must not prevail. What I have promised the king, I must perform. But ho, Miles Forest!
Here, sir.
Miles Forest, have you got those men I spake of? They must be resolute and pitiless.
I warrant you, sir, they're such pitiless villains that all London cannot match them for their villainy. One of their names is Will Sluter, yet the most part calls him Black Will. The other is Jack Denton, two murderous villains that are resolute.
I prithee, call them in, that I may see them and speak with them.
And enter Will and Jack.
Ho, Will and Jack.
Here, sir, we're at hand.
These be they that I told you of.
Come hither, sir. To make a long discourse were but a folly. You seem to be resolute in this cause that Miles Forest hath delivered you to. Therefore, you must cast away pity and not so much as think upon favour. For the more stern that you are, the more shall you please the king.
Zoon, sir, ne'er talk to us of favour. Is not the first that Jack and I have gone about.
Well said, but the king's pleasure is this, that he will have no bloodshed in the deed doing. Therefore, let me hear your advices.
Why then, I think this, Master Tyrrel, that as they sit at supper there should be 2 dags ready, charged, and so suddenly to shoot them both through.
No, I like not that so well. What sayest thou, Will? What is thy opinion?
Tush, here's more ado than needs. I pray, bring me where they are, and I'll take them by the heels and beat their brains against the walls.
Nay, that I like not, for 'tis too tyrannous.
Then hear me, Master Tyrrel. Let Will take one, and I'll take another, and by the life of Jack Denton we'll cut both their throats.
Nay, sirs, then hear me. I will have it done in this order. When they both be abed and at rest, Miles Forest, thou shalt bring them both, and between 2 feather beds smother them both.
Why, this is very good. But stand aside, for here comes the princes. I'll bring you word when the deed is done.
So, exit Tyrrel. Enter the princes, young Edward and young York.
How fares my noble lord and loving brother?
Ah, worthy brother, Richard, Duke of York. My cause of sorrow is not for myself, but this is it that adds my sorrow more. To see our uncle, whom our father left as our protector in minority, should so digress from duty, love, and zeal, so unkindly as to keep us up prisoners, and no sufficient cause for it.
My brother, comfort yourself, for though he detain us a while, he will not keep us long, but at last he will send us to our loving mother again, whither, if it please God to send us, I doubt not, but our mother would keep us so safe that all the prelates in the world should not deprive her of us again. So much I assure myself of. But here comes Miles Forest. I prithee, Miles, tell my kingly brother some merry story to pass away the time, for thou seest he is melancholy.
No, Miles, tell me no merry story, but answer me to one question. what was he that walked with thee in the garden? He thought he had the keys.
My lord, it was one that was appointed by the king to be an aid to Sir Thomas Brackenbury.
Oh, did the king? Why, Mouse Forest, am I not the king?
I would have said, my lord, your uncle the protector.
Nay, my kingly uncle. I know he is now, but let him enjoy both crown and kingdom, so my brother and I may but enjoy our lives in liberty. But tell me, is Sir Robert Brackenbury clean discharged?
No, my lord, he hath but charge for a night or two.
Nay then, new officers, new laws. Would we have kept the old still? But who are they whose ghastly looks doth present a dying fear to my living body? I prithee tell me, Miles, what are they?
One, my lord, is called Jack Denton. The other is called Will Slaughter. But why starts your grace?
Slaughter! I pray God he come not to slaughter my brother and me. For from murder and slaughter, good Lord deliver us. But tell me, Miles, is our lodging prepared?
Aye, my lord. If it please your brother and you to walk up.
Then come, brother. We will go to bed.
I will attend upon your grace.
Come, Miles Forest, bear us company.
Sirs, stay you two here. When they are asleep, I'll call you up.
Exit Forest.
I promise thee, Will. It grieves me to see what moan these young princes make. I'd rather than £40 I'd never ta'en it in end. 'Tis a dangerous matter to kill innocent princes. I like it not.
Are you base slave? Are you faint-hearted? A little thing would make me strike thee, I promise thee.
Nay, go forward, for now I am resolute. But come, let's do it.
I prithee stay. He'll call us up anon. But, Sir Jack, didst thou mark how the king started when he heard my name? What will he do when he feels me?
And re-enter Forest.
But ho, sirs, come softly, for now they are at rest.
Come, we're ready. By the match they're asleep indeed.
I hear they sleep, and sleep, sweet princes. Never wake no more, for you have seen the last light in this world.
Come, press them down. It boots not to cry again. Jack upon them so lustily. But Master Forest, now they are dead. What shall we do with them?
Why, go and bury them at the heap of stones at the stair foot, while I go and tell Master Tyrrel that the deed is done.
Well, we will. Farewell, Master Forest.
And exit Will and Denton, and re-enter, I apologise for the slightly confusing doubling, by the way, Tyrrel, who has just commissioned his own murder when he was voicing one of the princes.
How now, Miles Forest? Is the deed dispatched?
Aye, sir, a bloody deed we have performed.
But tell me, what hast thou done with them?
I have conveyed them to the stairs foot among a heap of stones, and anon I'll carry them where they shall be no more found again, nor all the chronicles shall ne'er make mention what shall become of them. Yet, good Master Tyrrel, tell the king my name, that he may but reward me with a kingly thanks.
I will go certify the king with speed. The Miles Forest, Will Slaughter, and Jack Denton, they three have done the deed. And so farewell.
And they all exit. Wow, fascinating. Again, so many ways. There's an interesting staging question about how the murders are actually done, because it's like they've gone off, but they've not. Is this in sight? Are they saying that line of dialogue off? Are they cheating it so that they sort of bring the sleeping bodies on stage? And how that works, I see lots of ways of how to cheat it. But yeah, that's a really interesting question. But I find it fascinating. They start with a brainstorming session.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think outside the box, people. A flip chart. Fascinating.
Yeah, and don't spill their blood. Okay, cool. We'll just run them through then, or bash their brains. Does that not spill blood?
Yeah. You've not read the brief.
I don't think either of them is going to be a contender on Mastermind anytime soon.
But they might appear in The Apprentice.
Either side of the pond.
Yeah.
As host.
Well, it's it's the fact that they're having this conversation with the princes as well. You know, that this murder is enacted on stage or semi on stage, and you know this is and yes, the dialogue sans any stage directions. You know, it means you sort of run over the action, but that action must take much longer because you know, again, smothering takes a while. So you know, this is you know a really dynamic scene in a sense. You know, going from quite a comic opening to you know obviously pure horror.
I found it very reminiscent of a similar scene in Woodstock.
I have to say, apart from lots of, you know, in terms of a lot of the actual dialogue itself, there's an awful lot of parallels with Woodstock in terms of the way the play's laid out and its interest in the general shape of things, you know, and the society. They're very similar in that sense.
Which way around the dating of the two?
They're not that far off each other, really. But I wouldn't want to, you know, make any claims at this stage. Francis?
Yeah, one thing I found really interesting and slightly amusing about the scene is that, you know, this murder of the princes just keeps getting subcontracted out.
Yeah. I was just about to say that. Yeah, there are like layers and layers of.
Yeah, and I assume
but I won't.
Yeah,
I suppose it's a bit like that. It's a bit like the mafia, you know. You don't. It's like the Godfather. It's like so that the king, Richard, can't be implicated.
Because Richard asked the page. Page went to Tyrrel. Tyrrel then got these people. I mean, yeah.
Well, Tyrrel went to Forest, and Forest got these people.
Yeah, it's just never-ending chain.
It kind of does make sense because whoever does it, then he kind of needs to disappear.
Yeah,
maybe forever. So it's like, yeah.
Well, I mean, at least with these, they are sort of professional killers.
Yeah.
They're not for contract hire; they're more just sort of ruffians. So, in a sense, you expect them to get hanged at some point for something else, regardless. It's not like we're playing the game of let's kill the murderers after the murderers have done the murder game, which lots of plays do.
Well, we don't know yet.
Well, well, yes, you're right. There's still a lot of the play to go. Great, they get names. Nominative determinism there.
Is this at about the middle of the play?
We're pretty middle-ish, yeah.
So between two lines in the middle of the play, we have what must be at least a 2 or 3 minute long scene of just brutal, silent murder of 2 children.
Again, very reminiscent of the death in Woodstock, of Woodstock's death itself. The way it's written suggests that it's incredibly long and lingering between snatches of dialogue. They don't. I mean, it's ever so slightly on the other side of middle, but it's an interesting question in a modern production. Where do you place it? Because we've got some quite tricky middle scenes here in terms of balance. If you're putting one interval in, where do you place it? It's quite tricksy.
I mean, the thing is that scene with Shaw's wife as well is kind of setting this up in a way.
Yeah.
Because it's changing the tone of the play. The play is getting darker and darker and darker. You wouldn't want to interrupt that.
Yeah.
That
I'm right in saying that this is the first murder we've actually had on stage, as it were, in this play so far. Because we've heard about all these other executions and killings, but they've all happened off stage.
Yes. You've seen them arrested. You've seen the setup, and it's that sense of the world that Richard is creating as he moves towards becoming king is just getting twisted and darker damage. He's damaging society.
Yes.
And that's, I think, why Cyril's wife is actually quite an important thing, because, you know, he's corrupting all these people. And there are, you know, and as well as then this most heinous of acts is building to this.
And there's also a sense that it's getting literally more claustrophobic, but like, because with Shaw's wife, you have this sense that, you know, people would help her if they didn't think they were going to get into trouble. And by by the time she meets Morton, it's like what he actually says, well, I'm being watched. So there's this sense of like the walls closing in. And then of course with this scene, well, the walls do, well, the walls don't close in, the pillows close in, but you know, it's like this sense of everything becoming more and more concentrated, more and more just like, claustrophobic, and everyone's becoming like no one can breathe, basically.
And it's interesting because we're about to go into a scene with Buckingham, and of course Buckingham we haven't really met. We talked about he was a bit thin. He hasn't really done anything, but he's constantly mentioned as being off doing other things. It's not like he and Richard have thickened as thieves in this play, and we're going to see perhaps another aspect coming up in the next scene. I shouldn't set things up too much. So let's go straight into scene 13 as we've got it here. Enter Banister and the Duke of Buckingham with his dagger drawn.
Ah, good, my lord, save my life.
Ah, villain, how canst thou ask for mercy when thou hast so unjustly betrayed me?
I desire your grace, but give me leave to speak.
Aye, speak thy last, villain, that those that hear it may see unjustly how unjustly thou hast betrayed me.
Then thus, my lord, first the proclamation was death to him that harbored your grace.
Ah, villain, and 1,000 crowns to him that could betray me.
Lord, my obeisance to my prince is more.
Ah, villain, thou betrayest me for lucre, and not for duty to thy prince. Why, Banister, a good servant thinks his life well spent, that spends it in the quarrel of his master. But, villain, make thyself ready, and here receive thy death.
But enter a herald.
Henry, Duke of Buckingham, I arrest thee in King Richard's name as a traitor.
Well, Herald, I will obey thy arrest. But am I arrested in King Richard's name? Usurping Richard, that insatiate bloodsucker, that traitor to God and man. Ah, Richard, did I in Guildhall plead the orator for thee, and held thee in all thy sly and wicked practices, and for my reward dost thou allot me death? Ah, Buckingham, thou playedst thy part and made him king, and put the lawful heirs besides. Why, then is Buckingham guilty now of his death? Yet, had not the Bishop of Ely fled, I had escaped.
Enter 6 others to rescue the Duke. Yes, Ed, I should have designated a 6. Really, I won't. I'll just do the dialogue of all these entering people. Come, the Duke of Buckingham shall not die. We will take him away by force.
Why, villains, will you be traitors to your prince?
Hey, my good friends, give me leave to speak, and let me entreat you to lay your weapons by. Then know this, countrymen, the cause I am arrested this is for bringing in your lawful king, which is Henry, Earl of Richmond, now in Brittany, and means ere long to land at Milford Haven in Wales, where I do know he shall have aid of the chiefest of the Welsh. He is your lawful king, and this is a wrongful usurper. When you shall hear of him landed in that place, then take up weapons and amain to him. He is the man must relieve you of this yoke and send a usurper headless to his home. And poor Buckingham prays upon his knees to bless good Richmond in his enterprise. And when the conquest shall be given to him, grant he may match with Lady Elizabeth, as promise half to 4 by him had been passed. When then, my friends, leave me alone to death, and let me take this punishment in peace. Ah, Buckingham, was not thy meaning good in displacing the usurper to raise a lawful king? Ah, Buckingham, it was too late. The lawful heirs were smothered in the tower. Sweet Edward and thy brother, I never slept quiet thinking of your deaths. But vaunt Buckingham, thou was altogether innocent of their deaths. But how, villain, whom of a child I nursed thee up, and hast so unjustly betrayed thy lord. Let the curse of Buckingham ne'er depart from thee. Let vengeance, mischiefs, tortures light on thee and thine. And after that death, thou mayst more torture fear than when Exion turns the restless wheel, and ban thy soul where'er thou seem to rest. But come, my friends, let me away.
My lord, we are sorry. But come, lay hands on Banister.
And we'll assume bad things happens to Banister. What an interesting scene. It just sort of comes out of the blue. And there is a sense with a lot of this that there's always something going on that we're not quite privy to. And this seems to be part of that. But we're thinking, Buckingham's being turned on by Richard, and the forces are turned, and he's got to fight for his life with this big speech. The dynamics of which and who he's talking to at different times is something that needs to be unpicked. But yeah, we get the Buckingham's still not done. It's all words. Other people, someone come in.
I find it confusing because Buckingham has helped Richard attain the throne, and now he's kind of turning on him and bringing in Henry, who's. So I'm very confused about Buckingham's motives throughout the play.
Buckingham throughout has constantly talked about as a threat as much as an ally. It's not actually inconsistent. It's just not necessarily coming across, possibly because we're thinking of another relationship between Buckingham and Richard. In this play, Buckingham is an ally only of convenience. I think you're right. It feels like there could be more to explain some of that.
Yeah.
But it is consistent with Buckingham as he's been portrayed and talked about.
Yeah, true.
In the play. But I think, it is destabilizing, this scene, and it's fascinating for that. Helen?
Why is the Herald laying hands on Banister?
Yeah.
Buckingham's turned him round.
Yeah.
Well,
Buckingham was so great.
I didn't get that at all.
And also a load of people have turned up to defend and rescue him.
Yeah,
so it's like numbers.
I got, my lord, we are sorry, but we're still going to have to arrest you. And I expected lay hands on Buckingham.
No, I think I don't think Buckingham is out yet. I could be wrong there. I could be wrong.
I thought it was both. He's saying we're sorry, but we're going to have to arrest you and lay hands on Banister too. Isn't that it?
I don't know.
I thought he was turned around. Alan, I see hand waving.
Yeah, I mean, my thought was that Banister was probably suffering the fate we've seen in other plays of those who've acted as an informer, peacefully for reward, that effectively, well, one way of avoiding paying up is to make them disappear.
Aliki?
Is that final part of Buckingham's speech, but thou villain, whom of a child I nursed thee up, is that at Banister?
Seems like it. Seems like there's a relationship there.
Right. Okay.
No.
Then I agree with your interpretation then. Who do you think it is, Helen?
No, I'm rethinking what I last thought.
Repeat that.
I think you're right.
About unjustly betraying thy lord.
Yeah.
Because it who he's talking to does seem to keep shifting, and so because we've got various different actors around him, so who he's appealing to.
I think one thing that we're missing from the point of view of understanding this, and we touched on this yesterday, is if there'd been a dramatis personae at the top explaining who some of these people are, we might have a better clue of where we're going. And I think certainly a modern audience would need some of that background information to make sense of it.
I to a degree, I think it's in part we in a production we would have to present how the relationship functions, in a way that's clear. But to some degree, the reason why it's difficult is we haven't got to the end of the play, so we can't fully judge it. And part of the process is to sort of get a sense of how it flows to us and how we see it coming. Dan, I see a hand.
Well, no, Sarah was going to speak first.
No, you carry on.
I didn't read carefully what happened before this, so normally that's something I would do if I'm going to play, especially with Buckingham, because I know this character is obviously familiar for other reasons. But when I read this speech, it was not the Buckingham that I grew up with. This was a very coolly dispassionate one, vain one. And so I thought, well, maybe it's better not to read what people had said about him before, or what his story was before, because perhaps it's against what everybody has actually said. In fact, he's not somebody who's really, I guess, engaged. He's shifting with the wind. He's a very vain person. So this arrest of him in his pleading was not much of a pleading at all, rather than to just, I guess, let himself off, which he's used to doing with some sort of eloquent speech of pivoting about.
Yeah, that he this is his final arrest, and he's just pointing out where this ship is going that you happen to be riding on. Yeah, because I say Buckingham's character is very slippery in this. Sarah,
it's not just as well that we haven't seen a lot of Buckingham. We haven't seen him with Richard,
no,
and that's
rarely.
That's the real key, because Richard is the kind of, he's not the only defining character in this play, which I kind of really like, but he's obviously the central figure. He's the defining character in the court, and we judge everybody else by their interactions with him, and we just haven't seen him. It's like people have talked about him constantly, but he's just not there, and we haven't, other than maybe the occasional couple of lines, we haven't seen them interact together. So he's just this really fascinating figure, and that ambiguity, I think it's really interesting that this scene comes directly after the murder of the princes, because the play has just been getting darker and darker and darker and more claustrophobic, and then this scene starts and you think, okay, what have we got coming next? Who's going to get murdered horribly now? This is all going to shit, and it's getting really dark here. And then all of a sudden, the cavalry arrive, and you get this rousing speech about, your true king, your true lawful king, Henry. And so it's like, da-da, it's the sun is breaking through again, through the darkness. And because we don't know really up until this point, we still don't know who Buckingham is, but because we don't know really anything about Buckingham, that ambiguity in his character kind of sets the audience up for a real surprise, because it's like you have no clue which way this is going to go. You think it's going to keep getting darker and darker, and then all of a sudden this shaft of light named Richmond appears from nowhere through his agency, through Buckingham's agency.
Well, the scene opens with a betrayal or an alleged betrayal. Paranoia seems to be driving everyone. We don't know what's going on with Banister and Buckingham at all, and it doesn't matter. It's just what Buckingham thinks is happening, and then he's betrayed by Richard, and then some of his men are loyal, and then precisely how this scene ends is going to be dependent on what happens next, and I'm deliberately not answering that question. We have a longish scene to do, a relatively tight time to do it in, so we're going to battle through scene 14 without a break. So it's King Richard now. Since we last saw him, he's actually now down as king. I think from this point onwards. He talks about a golden crown. So enter King Richard, Sir William Catesby, and others.
Sorry, I forgot my crown. The goal is got, and golden crown is won, and well deservest thou to wear the same that ventured has thy body and thy soul. But what boots Richard now the diadem, or kingdom got by murder of his friends? My fearful shadow that still followed me hath summoned me before the severe judge, My conscience, witness of the blood I spilled, accuses me as guilty of the fact a damned judgment craves, whereas impartial justice hath condemned. Methinks the crown which I before did wear, enchased with pearl and costly diamonds, is turned now into a fatal wreath of fiery flames and ever-burning stars, and raging fiends have passed their ugly shapes in student lakes addressed to tend on me. If it be thus, what wilt thou do in this extremity? Nay, what canst thou do to purge thee of thy guilt? Even repent, crave mercy for thy damned fact? Appeal for mercy to thy righteous God? Repent. Not I crave mercy that list. My God is none of mine. Then Richard be thus resolved, to place thy soul in balance with their blood, soul for soul, and body for body. Yeah, marry. Richard, that's good. Catesby.
You called, my lord, I think?
It may be so, but what thinkst thou, Catesby?
Of what, my lord?
Why, of all these troubles.
Why, my lord, I hope to see them happily overcome.
How, villain, dost thou hope to see me happily overcome?
Who, you, my lord?
Aye, villain, thou point'st at me. Thou hopest to see me overcome.
No, my good lord, your enemies, or else not.
Good Catesby, but what hearest thou of the Duke of Buckingham?
Why, he is dead, my lord. He was executed at Salisbury yesterday.
Why, 'tis impossible. His friends hopes that he shall outlive me to be my head.
Outlive you, lord? That's strange.
No, Catesby, if ado, it must be in fames, and since they hope he shall outlive me to be my head, he hops without his head and rests among his fellow rebels.
Marry, no force, my lord.
But Catesby, what hearest thou of Henry, Earl of Richmond?
Not a word, my lord.
No? Hearest thou not he lives in Brittany in favour with the Duke? Nay, more, Lady Margaret, his mother, conspires against us, and persuades him that he is lineally descended from Henry the Fourth, that he hath the right to the crown. Therefore tell me, what thinkst thou of the Earl?
My lord, I think of the Earl as he doth deserve, a most famous gentleman.
Villain, dost thou praise my foe and commend him to my face?
Nay, my lord, I wish he were as good a friend as he is a foe, else the due deserts of a traitor.
What's that?
Why, my lord, to lose his head.
Yeah, marry, I would 'twere off quickly then. But more to the strengthening of his title, she goes about to marry him to the Queen's eldest daughter, Lady Elizabeth.
Indeed, my lord, that I heard was concluded by all the nobility of Brittany.
Why, then there it goes. The great devil of hell go with all. A marriage begun in mischief shall end in blood. I think that accursed sorceress, the mother queen, doth nothing but bewitch me, and hatcheth conspiracies, and brings out perilous birds to wound their country's weal. The earl is up in arms, and with him many of the nobility. He hath aid in France, he is rescued in Brittany, he meaneth shortly to arrive in England. But all this spites me not so much as his escape from Landois, the Duke's treasurer, who, if he had been pricked forth for revenge, he had ended all by apprehending of our foe. But now he is in disgrace with the Duke, and we further off our purpose than tofore. But the Earl hath not so many biting dogs abroad, as we have sleeping curs at home here, ready for rescue.
But, my lord, I marvel how he should get aid there, considering he is no friend to Brittany.
Aye, so mayst marvel how the Duke of Brittany dost wake such a foe as England against him. But evil fair makes open war. But who come here, Catesby? Ha! One of our spurs to revenge, the Lord Stanley, father-in-law to Lady Margaret. His coming is to us, Catesby, what not that his life might serve. For apprehension against our foe, he should have neither judge nor jury, but guilty death without any more ado. Now, Lord Stanley, what news? Have you received any letters of your late embassage into Brittany? What answer have you received of your letters?
Why, my lord, for that I sent I have received.
And how doth your son then? Is he in health?
For his health, my lord, I do not mistrust.
Faith, tell us, when means he to arrive in England? And how many of our nobility is with him? And what power is with him?
And please your grace, his power is unknown to me, nor willingly would not I be privy to such causes.
Oh, good works, Lord Stanley, but give me leave to glean out of your golden field of eloquence how brave you plead ignorance, as though you knew not of your son's departure into Brittany out of England.
Not I, my lord.
Why, is not his mother thy wife? And dares he pass over without the blessing of his mother, whose husband thou art?
I desire your majesty, but give me leave to speak.
Yes, speak, Stanley, no doubt some fine-coloured tale.
And like your grace, whereas you mistrust that I knew of my son's departure out of England into Brittany, God, I take to record it was unknown to me, nor know not yet what his pretence is. For at his departure I was one of the Privy Council to your brother King Edward IV, and that she was able to relieve him without my help, I hope her sufficiency is known to your grace. Therefore I humbly crave pardon.
Well, Stanley, I fear it will be proved to the contrary, that thou didst furnish him both with money and munition, which if it be, then look for no favour at my hands, but the due deserts of a traitor. But let this pass. What's your repair to our presence?
Only this, my lord, that I may repair from the court to my house in the country.
Ay, sir, that you might be in Cheshire and Lancashire, then should your posts pass invisible into Brittany, and you to depart the realm at your pleasure, or else I to suffer an intolerable foe under me, which I will not. But Stanley, to be brief, thou shalt not go. But soft, Richard, but that it were better to be alone than to have noisome company. He shall go, leaving for his loyalty a sufficient pledge. Come hither, Stanley, thou shalt go, leaving me here thy son and heir, George Stanley, for a pledge, that he may perish for thy fault if need should be. If thou likest this, go. If not, answer me briefly and say quickly no.
I am to advise myself upon a secret cause of a matter that concerns me near. Say that I leave my son unto the king, and that I should but aid Earl Richmond, my son George Stanley dies. But if my faith be kept unto my prince, George Stanley lives. Well, I will accept the king's proffer, and please your grace, I am content, and will leave my son to pledge.
Here, come hither, and with thee take this lesson. Thou art set free for our defence. Thou shalt upon thy pledge make this promise, not only to stay the hindrance of the Earl, but to prevent his purpose with thy power. Thou shalt not seek by any means to aid or rescue him. This done, of my life thy son doth live. But otherwise thy son dies, and thou too, if I catch thee. And it shall go hard, but I will catch thee.
And you shall go apace, and yet go without me. But I humbly take my leave of your grace. Farewell, George.
How now, would you give him letters?
No, my lord, I have done. The second sight is sweet of such a son.
And exit Stanley.
Carry George Stanley to prison.
Alas, my lord, shall I go to prison?
Shall you go to prison? What a question's that! So pricked the lamb and wound the dam. How like Stanley?
And I'm going to pause you there. So we're about halfway through what is quite a long scene, but the rest of the scene very much runs into the next bit of action. So I'm going to close the session there. Let's discuss this scene as it comes. My word, isn't King Richard paranoid?
Yeah.
It's like the darkness that we've seen elsewhere in the play. It's on him as well. I mean, I'm recognizing bits of this from stuff I'm working on at the moment. His conscience his conscience has come out of the woodwork, and it's paranoia to himself, but also, you know. And then there's Catesby, and it's like Catesby just has to say something slightly wrong, and he's just and that, and then you've got the business of, you know, how do you defend your kingdom? You know, let's talk about Stanley. How do we get his allegiance? And Stanley gets the decision spotlight again. Bing, the light comes down. What am I going to do now? Do I go with it, option A or option B? Audience, you decide. Which is something that keeps happening in this play. It seems very deliberate, that it's really asking the audience to, what would you do at this moment? You know, this is your son might die, and that I think is really interesting. Thoughts about this scene so far, first half?
There's an awful lot of geopolitical stuff that I wasn't entirely with early on. Some foreign beggars who've been assisting Richmond or letting him go or taking him prisoner or something or other. I kind of lost it.
Well, I think it's not supposed. I don't think it needs to be too intelligible either. I think you know, there's something of a bit of a rant of he's just really down on Richmond and all of it. I that's maybe me.
So
It's all
finding
them
excuses.
foreigners. It's all them foreigners. They've got it in for me.
Sarah, muted.
Unmuted. There we go. There's a delicious irony in that speech he has at the top of the scene, because it just reminded me of yesterday when he's talking earlier on about, like, oh, you know, I could be king for like a month, a week, a day, an hour, half an hour, just stick it on my head for like 5 minutes and everyone says, God save the King, Richard, and I'll be happy. And he made such a point of saying all that in that speech. And then literally the minute the crown is on his head, he's like, oh, shit. So I just really enjoyed that.
Tamara.
I also, going back to that, I felt like I was looking in a mirror while I was doing that speech. I don't know why, but that's what immediately came to my head, that I was looking at myself with almost like Prince John in Robin Hood, and it's like, suits me, yeah. It was weird.
But yes, this lovely crown is turning into a fiery flames as opposed to the unfiery kind.
It's really,
have to pick that one up.
It's really close and precise observation of the psychology of a tyrant. I'm fascinated by how accurate it is.
I mean, I literally was rehearsing today because I'm doing the one-man version of The Ghost of Richard III that does this whole element of his conscience weighing on him. Can he repent? Can he ask for mercy? And it's basically taken this theme here and expanded upon it, and I was just going, yeah, this all sounds awfully familiar. Very, very good. And it's right, it's very accurate. And the thing is that Richard isn't really portrayed throughout the play, I don't know if people just will agree with me or not, as fundamentally different to any of the other ambitious people. You know, he just does it and he's in a better place. It's not like he's standing in going, ha 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 ha, I will do all, you know, he's willing to do terrible things. He has ambition, but he doesn't seem a person apart in a fundamental way. I don't know if I'm overstating that. Tamara, I see a hand.
Well, I was just going to kind of emphasize the fact that the very first scene he speaks, not the one he's lurking in, but the one he speaks in, he's surrounded by people who are basically calling him the king already. They're calling him Majesty. They're saying, oh, you'll be king. Oh, this is great. So it's less him going more ha ha and more going,
Yeah. Alan.
I think what we've got is simply the fact he was unlucky in the old rule of history being written by the winners.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the whole damn thing is due to spin.
Well, it's not wholly untrue. He did usurp the crown. Yitka.
It's fascinating to see various incarnations of Richard in various texts dealing with the problem of God. I find it just absolutely fascinating, and that's so central. The question of conscience and the ghost, as you mentioned, Rob, is just incredible in that. But I am really struck by how he is trying to define his position, like almost against God or in relation to God. The repentance and the line, my God is none of mine. I wonder what you made of it.
I mean, I heard it fairly straightforwardly when Tamara said it as, God isn't on my side. Whatever side God's on, I'm on the other side.
Fascinating to bringing Richard III into the central character of the narrative. Because up until now, we've had all sorts of people, their Shaw's wife, who have been taking centre stage. But I think the purpose of this scene is to push him forward as the central character. And perhaps that's why it's such a long scene 14.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a chance for Richard to really do some speechifying and interaction, because he hasn't had that many inner monologues. Yitka again.
There is something for me in my reading of the speech and the way he constructs what he has achieved and the damnation he feels as, Milton's Satan cast away from heaven, trying to create that, and that rebellion and being exactly opposed to God. I find that really, really fascinating, really, really strong.
Okay, we are, I say, into extra time now. Final thoughts. Are there generally about the play so far as well? We've expanding from this scene. Just going briefly around the room. We've got a few minutes. Ruth, do you have any final thoughts about the play so far?
Well, I still really love the play. I'm very struck by that scene 12 where we see Miles Forrest kind of engaging all of those different people and different ways of killing and so on, because for me that kind of takes the spotlight off Richard, or doesn't make Richard into this kind of figure of massive villainy. It's about, that phrase about the defoliation of the kingdom is kind of suggesting that everyone is potentially available to be corrupted, and this is what we're seeing is that scene 12 really dwells kind of ghoulishly on the means by which the young princes will be killed, and it's very striking, kind of slowing down of time at that point, but also the suggestion that everyone is capable of, it's not just Richard.
Valentina, do you have any final thought? You weren't here yesterday, so I don't know how fresh you come into the text.
No. I think, following what Ruth said, like for me, coming in today, it's just like, it's really lovely to see how much of so many other characters around him, and no one is really, no one close to him is really questioning him. They're all going like, okay, I'll pass it on, but I might not do it myself, I'll pass it on. But no one is really going because I think if the page or anyone next to him just were to go no, he doesn't himself seem to hold that much power. He delegates a lot. So curious to see, in other plays, you always see the main person, if you say no, you get killed by the person.
Yes, I was going to say, it's like they've watched the other plays. They've seen Cambyses.
But he himself doesn't seem to be that much of a threat. It's more everybody else is kind of on his side.
They're all complicit. Sarah, final thought?
Yeah, because I wanted to say my final thought because it ties in with what Valentina just said there. It's what I love about this play is he's such a great politician. He's not necessarily the big tyrant that we see in other plays like Cambyses or whatever. He's not necessarily the big bad evil cackling in a corner. What I love about him is he's extremely effective. I was talking about this play last night, and my husband always says to me, did you enjoy it? And I was like, yeah, and I was saying, the thing I love about it is he's so effective. He's so ruthlessly effective. He's very much like a modern politician in that sense. And, he doesn't go around chopping people up himself. He gets other people to do it. And what I find really fascinating is that now he's got the crown on his head, he's starting to shift slightly. He is becoming more mythic, and I absolutely loved what Yika said about, making that parallel with Milton's Satan. This idea that, God is repudiating him, or more to the fact he's repudiating God, and he's now, he's not just like some big bad stomping around the stage. He started off as this very, very concise and effective politician, and now he's growing into this more kind of mythic evil character, and I'm really interested to see whether that is something that continues, or how this version of the history is going to play out.
Francis, any final thoughts on you?
Well, I love the play. I love its breadth with all the characters at every strata of society. There's such rich characters as well. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Yeah.
Elizabeth, anything from you? Final thought?
I completely agreed with Sarah for the wrong things that Sarah was saying, and I think that this scene is really awkward for us to stop here. I know we have to stop in the middle of 14, but I would love to have seen scene 14 all the way through, even though it's a long one.
Yes, I think there is sometimes a bit of a shame that scheduling slightly damages the way we see the play. So I do apologise for that. But 14 is an irritatingly shaped scene.
Yes.
Helen, final thought.
My favourite scene by a long way was the Shaw's wife scene, which we will find has a parallel in John of Bordeaux, which we've yet to come to. There's a very similar scene there of begging by a woman, but in this case, a virtuous woman. But what I liked about this one was the amount of narrative that was got over quite painlessly to the audience, because it came in separate chunks, separated by some character stuff. And yet there was an there was a play's worth of plot was offloaded onto the audience, and it was done with such skill and such little upset to the play.
And it does keep doing that. It keeps just throwing in little, bits of plot here and there, and sometimes better and worse. But they keep characters doing things while plot is delivered. It is absolutely fab for that. Alan, final thought?
Not much to add. I mean, it's enjoyable. It's moving at a reasonable pace. I think it would be interesting to see it as in a one shot, which I think would possibly change some of the dynamic of it. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly working. Part of the trouble is that having looked at one or two other plays on the same topic, it's difficult to try and remember which bits relate to which.
Yes, I mean, we've all read the Latin version at school, so it's so easy to get confused. Aliki, final thought from you.
This has just rocketed to the top of my "we need to stage this" list. I absolutely love this play. I think it has a great deal to say to modern times, and it'll be so fascinating to stage with contemporary techniques.
Yes, I think it gives the modern directors so much to play with. Dan, final thought, having come in today?
Yeah, I feel a bit behind because I wasn't here yesterday. So probably I'll have more final thoughts tomorrow, or I guess more concrete final thoughts. incomplete ones, I'm just looking, as you know, always from this book history standpoint of, I'm looking at how it's a very much of a verse play at first, and then all of a sudden just shifts to prose with only Richard speaking in verse there. I've read things about this quarto supposedly being a bad print of it, but I'm not seeing that really right now at all, and I don't know where that's come from.
Yeah, I've been deliberately not engaging with that particular thorn. I think we're on the same page on that.
Right, this is a Thomas Creed printed play, so you can see a lot of those. His technique, considering pretty much every play I think that we've done in the past 4 weeks or so has been printed by Creed. I'm not seeing anything out of the ordinary there in terms of his technique there. So I'll have more probably to observe tomorrow.
Lovely. Yitka, any final thought from you?
Well, I think great points have been made today. So what I would just mention is it's interesting how you have this story, which is very fundamental to the Tudor dynasty and very much playing into some of the anxieties of the 1590s. So you really need Richmond, and just despite that, this story can't escape from Richard in any way. With all many other incarnations of the story, you always have Richmond as this character that's just entered to save history, but he would really complain about his theatrical depiction. I think this is just yet another proof of that. Richard is absolutely inescapable in the energy that he is showing, that sort of dark magnetism that he has.
And now that Buckingham's definitely dead, then I'm presuming possibly there's where the doubling lives. I don't know.
Yes.
And yes, I didn't point out earlier that yes, obviously Buckingham is definitely going to his death at the end of that scene. So yes, the Herald almost certainly is sorry, but he's still going to have to kill Buckingham. But also he will kill the other person as a sort of consolation prize, kind of thing. But we can discuss that perhaps another time. Tamara, Richard himself, as it were. Final thought from you to close the session.
Yes, I seem to be liking my Richards. So I like this one too. I had a lot of fun doing it. Yeah, I don't know. I mostly today, I mean yesterday as well, but today a lot of parallels to Game of Thrones just struck me. And I almost want to ask Mr. Martin if he read this play, because it's he's even got, you know, Lodowick, and I kept thinking Podrick.
No.
On a serious note, this is definitely so far one of those plays that I'd love to see on stage. I think it's another one that I feel is a complete shame that it's not being done and not seen by a wider audience.
You know, we've done Thomas at Woodstock. We've done the famous victories of Henry V. We haven't done Edward the Fourth, parts 1 and 2 yet. But you know, we have got a bit of a linking thing that we can do here, and that's very much in my mind going forward into next year. It would be lovely to do. It's been a fab session. I'd like to thank everyone once again for unearthing Richard from his particular car parking space, and I'll just like to say thank you to everyone and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.